This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Maximus. On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, the self-selection process that's coming to federal hiring.
Making applicants work a little bit is going to turn off a whole bunch of applicants. So the numbers are going to be reduced, I think, significantly, because today it's just too easy to click a button and literally apply to 100 or 1,000 jobs.
Former OPM Associate Director Ron Sanders on FedGov Today in just a moment. Uniting program strategy, advanced technology, process, and execution for a more efficient government. That's Maximus. Every program, every service, every time. That's innovation forward. Learn more at maximus.com/federal. 4 essay questions will form an important part of hiring applications for potential new federal employees. A new plan from the Office of Personnel Management includes several other big changes, too. Ron Sanders is president and CEO of Publica Virtu. He's former Chief Human Capital Officer at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and former Associate Director at the Office of Personnel Management. Ron, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. What do you see in this memo from the Domestic Policy Council and the Office of Personnel Management that will impact federal hiring managers and HR professionals the most and the most quickly? Welcome, Ron.
Thank you, Francis. Thanks for having me. And you need to tell me how much time we have, because I've looked at the memo and I see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in this case, the ugly, I'll interpret as jury is still out. Here's the good thing: the emphasis on hiring, the emphasis on getting agency leaders involved, on talent teams. There's a whole bunch here to like.
Let's start with the good and get to the others later. What is here that is important that will help agencies get the people in that they need faster, better, and so on?
Well, again, just the emphasis on hiring is a good thing. The monthly reports are a good thing. It keeps the rhythm up. Getting agency heads involved in hiring, where most of them, frankly, are there as policy wonks and could care less about it. To me, that hiring is the agency's seed corn, but there's a flip side that we'll get to. No unnecessary degrees, although I think that's something that we had when I was at OPM, but it's been embellished and emblazoned of late. So there's, a lot to be, a lot to applaud here that I think is a good thing. And I'm glad that OPM saw fit to issue the memo.
All right. What's the bad? What's here that you don't like or that will make things more difficult for hiring managers and HR professionals?
Let me go right to the chase. There are 4 essays now involved in hiring. And one of the 4 essays is, in my view, very problematic. Now, let me back up a step. I'm old school. I love the fact that they're making applicants work. As Chico for the intelligence community, I can't tell you how many thousands of resumes we would see submitted at the click of a button, thousands of times from the same applicant for the same jobs, for the same this and the same that. And it's even worse these days with AI. So the fact that you're going to make applicants do a little work, I think, is a good thing. The fact that they're to certify that they're not using AI, frankly, we have better tools than that. We can make sure, as a former teacher, I can tell you this, we can make sure that they're not using AI to submit their essay questions. So all of that is good. The third essay is problematic. The third essay basically says, give me examples of how you supported the president. And we've got OPM guidance that runs exactly counter to that. The OPM guidance says you don't have to support the president politically. You don't have to campaign for him. You don't have to donate for him or her. But you have to follow faithfully, quote unquote, faithfully implement his agenda. That's not what the third essay says.
I read directly from the memo. How would you help advance the president's executive orders and policy priorities in this role? Identify 1 or 2 relevant executive orders or policy initiatives that are significant to you and explain how you would help implement them if hired. Here's the challenge that I see potentially. That's great for as long as President Trump or somebody who agrees with him is in office. That would seem to me to be a big problem if someone becomes president after President Trump who doesn't subscribe to his policy positions. Then we'd have a
Well,
person in the government who wants to directly act contrary to that president.
well, Francis, I'll go you one better. The hypocrisy already exists. Too many career civil servants have literally lost their jobs because they did what President Biden wanted them to do. They faithfully carried out his agenda with respect to DEI. Now, I'm not a fan of DEI. You can take it or leave it as far as I'm concerned, but that's easy for me to say because I'm no longer a Chico. If I were in place and President Biden said, I want you to promote DEI, I would look at that guidance, that OPM guidance that was just issued, and say, I have no choice but to faithfully, quote unquote, implement that agenda. Now, President Trump comes along. He's elected. He says, let's get rid of DEI. I'll salute smartly. But we've had too many career civil servants who did just that and who have lost their jobs. So that's the hypocrisy. You don't have to wait for another election to see that hypocrisy. It's there. And it's almost like, Francis, there's a tug of war going on within the administration between the really smart people who realize that that third essay is potentially a politicizing sort of question, and the ideologues who say, just as you've alluded, we've got President Trump, let's see what you say about supporting him, and we don't care about what comes after. And that, I'm not sure who's going to win that tug of war, but that third essay is problematic.
What gives you indication that there are people in the administration that think that that third question is problematic, Ron?
Oh, I think there are lots of smart people in the administration. And again, 75, 80% of that hiring memo is a great thing. Making applicants do a little work, to me, is one of the most important things to take away from this memo. Again, just because I've seen too many mass applications from the same individual and or self-assessments that say I can walk on water, and the fact that the memo says no more self-assessments, no more unnecessary degrees, you got to do a little work to apply. All of those are really, really good things. And that's why I think the smart people are behind all of those really, really good things. But I think there are some ideologues who are still pulling some strings. And the net result is that third essay and a couple of other things where the jury is still out, like those special emphasis programs. I'm not a fan of them, but I honestly don't know whether we are mature enough as a government to do away with them. Same thing with no stats.
What are you talking about with the special emphasis programs, Ron?
Well, the memo says no more special emphasis programs. It literally bans them, like DEI. Again, like DEI, if I'm a career civil servant, I'm going to salute smartly. But what I don't know as a career HR person is whether doing away with them will actually harm the government. Here's what's changed. This is between the lines. To me, the goal has always been we want a workforce that looks like America for obvious reasons. And in the intelligence community, we wanted a workforce that even looked like the rest of the world. That was a mission imperative. That goal has now changed. The goal is now merit above all, color blindness. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not going to argue against it. In fact, I want to promote it wherever I can. But the fact that you can no longer collect statistics to see how you're doing, I think the jury is still out. So again, there's some things that are really good here, like the memo itself. There are some things that are really bad, like that third essay. There are some things where the jury is still out, like the ones I've just mentioned, where we'll just have to see how this plays out. But the fact that you've got the memo in the first place, I think, is ultimately a good thing.
We've been focused on the third essay question, and I'll run through the other three really quickly because there are four total. How has your commitment to the Constitution and the founding principles of the United States inspired you to pursue this role within the federal government? Provide a concrete example from professional, academic, or personal experience. That's number one. Number two, in this role, how would you use your skills and experience to improve government efficiency and effectiveness? We've covered number three. Number four is, how has a strong work ethic contributed to your professional, academic, or personal achievements? How would one go about evaluating the hundreds to thousands of essay questions that are going to be submitted along with these applications, Ron? Or is that material that somebody probably won't look at until an applicant is pretty far along in the hiring process?
I suspect more of the latter, that they'd have to be pretty far along. But again, to me, the good thing, take the content aside for the moment. The good thing is that you're making applicants work, and this is something my colleagues and I have always known. Past experience is the best predictor of future success. So when the essays say, give us examples from your professional, personal life, that's a good thing. Again, that's essays 1, 2, and 4. Those are all really good. And you're right, they probably won't be screened with any sort of precision until near the end of the process, literally to break ties to interview people. But again, the fact that you're making applicants work, I think, runs counter to the use of social media and other mass ways of applying for federal jobs today that frankly don't tell HR professionals a thing.
Those essay questions jumped out at me right away as I read through this the first time, Ron. The other piece that I went to right away, though, was this reducing time to hire to 80 days. Now, you and I have been talking about reducing the hiring process in the federal government. Other HR professionals have been talking to me. You've been on panels with me 500 times if you've been on one about how to reduce the hiring process. 80 days is a noble goal. It's very reasonable. I'm well aware of many friends and colleagues in the private sector who have been hired into jobs at executive levels at far less than 80 days. What is here, if anything, that you see that will move the ball toward that goal, if not all the way into the end zone on that goal?
Well, I think what's really important, Francis, is what's not there. Well, there are two long poles in the tent. One is fixable, and that is the processes within HR that take too long. And there are ways, especially with modern technology, to reduce that. But the other part that's not here are security clearances. Those may take a long time. And they're not mentioned. And I think that's a good thing because that's an exception. And 80 days at the end of the day is an average. But let me try to connect some dots here because I do think, again, making applicants work a little bit is going to turn off a whole bunch of applicants. So the numbers are going to be reduced, I think, significantly, because today it's just too easy to click a button and literally apply to 100 or 1,000 jobs. Tomorrow you're going to have to actually write an essay, and while you may be able to reuse parts of that essay, the fact is you're going to have to tailor it to the jobs that are being advertised. So I think that's going to cut down the number. What's further going to cut down the number, though, is problematic. This administration has denigrated public service. You can't now turn on a dime and say, we want the best and brightest to come apply now. We've already said we're going to slash your throats. I have a governor in my state of Florida that has said that. We said that, and now but we now want you. We want the best and brightest to apply. I hope it's not too late. I hope kids are making these decisions literally as they graduate this year and next, and they're not looking at history. And there are too many studies that suggest that they're not. So I do think they'll come running, but I hope. But that's one of those where the jury is still out, and this administration cannot and should not be denigrating public service, even as it downsizes the federal workforce. I think you can walk and chew gum at the same time.
All right. What would you do if you were still at OPM to look at this down the line, 6 months, a year, 2 years, to see that you're getting the results that you wanted, or to see that you needed to go in a different direction?
Well, again, I would first of all, I would personally change everything that's bad about the memo. And again, I'll focus on a couple of things like the third essay. For those things where the jury is still out, I would reassess. I would look at those things. I would look at the fact that we've eliminated special emphasis programs and see whether that's affecting recruiting. I would look at where we are recruiting. Are we still going to HBCUs and historically Hispanic serving institutions, et cetera, HBCUs and HACUs? Are we still going there? What's the effect of having no statistics? Do we have a workforce that looks like America, or do we have a workforce that looks like you and me? So there are lots of things to reassess after 6 months. and frankly, after the midterm elections, because I'm waiting for Congress to speak. But again, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in this case, I'm defining the ugly as things where the jury is still out, and that's exactly what I would be going to if I were still at OPM.
It's great to have you on the show as always, my friend. Thanks for joining me, Ron.
I hope this works, Francis.
You can find a link to the hiring memo on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Defense Department organizations can choose from among 3 solutions now for zero trust implementations, and more will be available by the end of the year. Randy Resnick, the director of the Zero Trust Program Management Office, DoD, said a lot of doubters thought the department might never make it this far. You can watch my conversation with Randy on demand anytime at fedgovtoday.com and on the FedGov Today YouTube channel. The next FedGov Today podcast is coming Thursday. A new list of federal buildings the government could get rid of is out. You'll learn how the buildings on the list got there and whether yours might be next. You can listen to that show and every FedGov Today podcast anytime you want on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on demand at fedgovtoday.com. I'm Francis Rose. Thanks very much for listening.